Welcome to the October 28th, 2024 Troy City Council meeting. Please rise for our invocation and remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. We give you thanks, Heavenly Father, for the blessings of this day and for the blessings you've given each and every one of us here in Troy. And we ask that you continue to bless us through this evening and through the night. We are extremely mindful of our first responders today, Lord, as it is National First Responders Day, and we ask that you continue to watch over them as they watch over all of us in the city, recognizing the important and hard work they do and the sacrifices they make for all of us. We ask that you be with all of those throughout our city of Troy tonight and throughout the nation and world, recognizing there is often pain and hurt, and sometimes you can do a lot to ease that pain. Please continue to give us peace. Please continue to give us good health and be with those who need your extra help and guidance, even if they can't ask for it themselves, Lord. In his name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call to order the October 28th, 2024 Troy City Council meeting and ask for the roll call from Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Chanda?
Here.
Councilmember Gunn?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Here.
All present this evening. First up are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 5 this evening. C1 is a proclamation to celebrate Troy resident Rithvika Kari on her exceptional accomplishments in the sport of cricket. So Rithvika, I'll ask you to join me down at the podium so I can present a proclamation. All right, I'm going to read this proclamation into the record if I can pick it up. There we go. All right. This is a proclamation to celebrate Troy resident Rithvika Kari on her exceptional accomplishments in the sport of cricket. Whereas the cricket community in Michigan is abuzz with excitement as an outstanding athlete emerged as a front-runner in her age group, positioning herself as a top contender on the national stage. And whereas Troy resident and Michigan Youth Cricket MYCA player Rithvika Kari has achieved quite an accomplishment, the first female from Michigan to make the women's U19 national squad to represent the United States in the sport of cricket. Being from Michigan, competing at a national level and crossing that finish line at the young age of 14 is just a dream for many, but Rithvika achieved this dream. And whereas Rithvika has been the lone fighter, playing along with the boys for years now, her hard work, dedication, perseverance, and commitment to the sport is simply unparalleled. She is a true ambassador representing our community. And whereas Rithvika went through a series of tournaments and landed as a top scorer in the intra-regional competition to secure her spot on the women's U19 national squad, as Rithvika gears up to represent the United States on the international stage, she embodies the spirit of excellence and determination that defines cricket. Her achievement serves as inspiration to aspiring athletes nationwide, highlighting the boundless possibilities that await those who dare to dream and strive for greatness. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy hereby congratulate Rithvika Kari for working tirelessly to excel in the sport of cricket, bringing pride and positive recognition to the City of Troy. And be it further resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy invite all of our residents to celebrate Rithvika's achievements, wish her much success in all future endeavors, and thank her for being a great role model for our community and exceptional advocate for the sport of cricket. This proclamation, Rithvika, is presented this 28th day of October 2024. It's signed by myself as the mayor. All members of our city council have signed it, who all are extremely, I'm sure, proud to have you here today and to celebrate you. I congratulate you, and I present this to you and say, what an amazing feat. Thank you so much. Let's give it a
Hi,
everyone. First of all, I would really say thanks to Mayor Ethan Baker and the Troy City Council for recognizing and presenting this award to me tonight. So I would like to thank a couple of people first. Firstly, my friends, my family and friends, especially my dad. He has truly spent countless hours training me in nets and traveling me all across the country to achieve my dreams in cricket. Also, I would like to thank my coach, Coach Vinod, for always believing in me and letting me take risks and continue to grow as a cricketer. Thank you so much, Coach. As well as NYCA management, coaches, and players for always supporting me and having my back. Also, getting into nationals isn't that easy without a proper infrastructure. And I would like to heartily thank Mayor Ethan Baker and the council for creating a cricket field at Bowling Park. I think that this ground will really motivate more young aspiring cricketers to represent the USA. Thank you.
That's all. Awesome. It's very cool. All right. Next up, and actually before I continue, I meant to make this reminder at the beginning. If you're here for public comment this evening, our rules state that you have the first 15 minutes of the meeting to sign up, unless you're here for the public hearing on E1. But if you're signing up under F, L, or Q, you have until about 7:45 to sign up on the kiosk out in the lobby. Just know that. Thank you. All right. Next up is C2, Troy Community Foundation 2024 Troy Family Days Report, and that'll be presented by Karen Greenwood and Olivia McLaughlin from the Troy Community Foundation.
Hi. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor Baker, for having us here today. I want to make sure everybody can hear me. My name is Karen Greenwood. I'm the chair of the Troy Community Foundation. Olivia McLaughlin is here with me, and she is our executive director. We're going to go over two parts. The first part is going to be about what the foundation does, and then I'm going to give a Troy Family Days update. So it's all yours.
Sure, thank you. Fine. So just a little update. Thank you again, Mayor Baker. Oh, sorry. Oh, a clicker. Look at that. We're so official. Okay. Thank you for having us again this year to present on Troy Family Days. But just a little bit of update on the Troy Community Foundation. So in addition to myself, Karen Greenwood is our board chair. You see our foundation officers listed there, as well as our advisory board, which is made up of a number of community and business leaders here from Troy. Of course, we have our Troy Family Days Committee, which is an all-volunteer leadership committee, give or take 20 members. We meet almost all year round. What do we take? Halloween till maybe the new year off, and we're back at it, planning for the next year's festival, so that really is a hardworking group. We list here our partner organizations, our lovely senior citizen groups, the Friends of Troy Seniors, Senior Home Assistance Repair Program, and our Senior Computer Lab. So as mentioned, we have 14 endowments currently, and this is really the sort of bread and butter of our foundation that we are looking to grow. We currently have just over $930,000 in endowments. That's invested with Morgan Stanley at this time. And even though it's an optional annual distribution rate that each of the endowments can take each year, if that were to be paid out each year, we could estimate, another $400,000 could be distributed with their nonprofit efforts over the next 10 years that it's reinvested in the Troy community. So anyone can start an endowment with an initial deposit of $10,000. Always a plug. Reach out, please, if you do have any questions, refer us. If people are curious, we have families, businesses, and organizations, and we do want to spread the word and sort of kind of grow that and be able to have those investing in the community do that under us, which would be great. So I won't read our list of endowments here. I will highlight sort of the most recent three, which is our Satterfield First Responder, which is an endowed scholarship taking place annually. Eligible applicants would be first responder, children of first responder or public safety program officers, or anyone who is currently enrolling into a first responder or public safety program. Also, the Seminy Leadership Endowment. Joe Seminy is a world-class citizen in our community here. He helped co-found the foundation many moons ago and is still on our advisory board, and his hope is to just grow that legacy of leadership in the community. So he is looking forward to doing some of that programming here soon. And then finally, the Janet Sharp Schoon is an endowed scholarship that's a memorial scholarship. Janet was a fifth grade music teacher here in the Troy School District, and in her career taught at all of the elementary schools throughout Troy, and her family wanted to invest in something, again, that would, provide and honor her legacy. So budding musicians following their fifth grade initial instruction, taking music lessons, they can apply for that. So that's an annual scholarship. So think about that, tell your friends, and we can add your name to this list. And then last but not least, an overview from the foundation. Actually, this is only slightly dated by a week. I couldn't turn the slides. We just met last week, and so we do have our fall 2024 recipients in addition, but this is fall 2023 and spring 2024 recipients. But just to give you an idea of, again, the nonprofits and the groups and the organizations, we have schools, everything from, youth and seniors, beautification, health and recreation. So the whole breadth of it, but again, these are hyper-local. These are names that you should recognize. Some of them are new, some of them are getting started, some of them are student-led, but again, these are organizations that are truly sort of make up our community that we love here in Troy. So I think Karen's gonna go over Troy Family Days.
Awesome.
Click.
I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to see it, so that's fantastic. So Troy Family Days, for anyone who doesn't know it, is a fabulous 4-day event that is run by a city of volunteers, not just help from the city, but also a ton of volunteers. So every year when we start meeting, which is usually in February or March, we sit down with a core group and say, what do we want this year's event to look like? And there is always a pile of things. But when I say we're all really volunteers, we all have day jobs. So we have to usually pare that list down and see what we can really tackle, and also ask the community what they want. So we did a lot of community outreach this year through our Facebook page and social media and asked what everybody wanted. So this year we brought back a couple really cool things. We brought back the Troy Fire Department, Clawson Fire Department water battle. Troy Fire did not win. We had Oakland 80 College Night on Thursday night, where we had 8 participating colleges set up on the rink, which we will talk about that space in a second. We also had a small outcry from our community that we wanted to have more nonprofits at our event, but it is a long 4-day, 30-hour event, and small nonprofits can barely get people into their board meeting, far less to sit at a booth for 4 days. So we decided to prepare a booth, give everybody 2 or 3 hour time slots to sit and show their wares. So we filled that out quite quickly. Cindy Stewart helped us with that. The jury's still out as to whether it was super successful. Yes, it was full. Yes, people saw our nonprofits, but they were walking by, potentially. So that is something else that we're going to discuss at our first meeting. We're going to reach back out to that group, and we're going to poll the people who actually sat in the booth specifically to find out if they felt it was valuable. So I would love to see it there. I would love to see it maybe a little bit different. So first year doing that. And then I'm sure everybody has heard the word voluntold, okay? We've had many people say to us, we want to bring back the parade. So somebody said, we should bring back the parade. And I said, great, you're the chair. So we brought back the parade this year. We went from Walsh College to the community center. We had 36 participants, some people sitting along the side, the fire trucks were there, DPW was there. It was really fantastic. We didn't charge a whole lot of money because we wanted to get the momentum going, but the buzz is all about the parade. So how do we make it bigger? How do we make it safer? Can we throw candy? All the questions. We did do a little bit of research. We mirrored our registration forms after other local parades to make sure that, we gave people a set of rules. So, you never know. One day I might throw a 5K or a parade. You never know. We also host the cutest pet contest Troy DPW did Touch a Truck. We brought the 5K. It was the 3rd annual 5K, biggest attendance we've ever had. The pancake breakfast, Rotary does a pancake breakfast in that morning. A naturalization event, robotics, elementary, middle school, and high school teams this year. Our Thursday big event was at capacity with over 400 students from around the Oakland County area. And the Troy Historic Village, Scarecrow Row, you really couldn't even begin to miss it. So we're pretty happy with the outcome of Troy Family Days. There's a couple of things that I want you to be excited about this event, but the numbers on paper don't always look that great. We had a decrease in attendance, but we expected that. So last year, in '23, we had 25,000 people come through. That is the highest number we have ever had, ever. So we think that some of that was still COVID high. We're dealing with inflation now. We're dealing with tighter pocketbooks. So we had talked to our rides company and asked them where one of his last festivals, asked him how his festivals had been ranking, and he was saying 10, 12, and 15% down. So we actually planned for a 10% decrease in attendance at the door. And for everybody who brought credit cards, you'll be so excited we started taking credit cards this year. Surprisingly, that's a bone of contention with people. Our food vendor space sold out. Actually, all of our space sold out. We had a little bit more space this year, which helps pick up some of that revenue dollars. We had more space because we've spread out in the park. And we don't have a big, huge entertainment tent. We're actually using the pavilion. So our booth sales were up 75%. Our food vendors, they sold out well before the event. We were not chasing them how we have in the past. Corporate sponsors, some new corporate sponsors, our corporate contribution was $3,000 less than last year, which is pretty negligible. Our expenses, everything was more expensive this year. Fence, porta potties, every single thing. But we kept our expenses under control. Places where we saved money is we didn't have to rent a trailer for our headquarters. We got to use this beautiful pavilion, and that of course saved us some money from an entertainment tent. You'd be surprised, tents can cost $3,000 and $4,000. So the space this year, to be able to use this beautiful space, I can't tell you how many people came to us and said, I didn't even know this was here. They clearly live under a rock, but it is just gorgeous. And the entertainment that went on underneath there was so engaging. You had no choice but to sit down and enjoy it. So just a couple more numbers for you. The big event, like I said, had over 400 special needs students and their chaperones. The naturalization event, which is a very moving and touching event, and I'm honored to be part of it, is we had 20 new citizens this year, so that's really exciting. International Day, 19 different performances between 12 and 6 o'clock. Yes, we jammed them right in there. What a great effort. We work with Global Troy and Lisa Grodsky with that. She did a phenomenal job. Like I said, we had over 20,000 people through. Our food vendors and nonprofits were at capacity. This year, where we worked with the city and all departments, police and fire, we've upped our security. There's cameras, there's night walks, there's a first aid tent. We take our job very seriously on making sure that the citizens of Troy are safe, and we work with the police and fire to make sure that that happens. I could not ask for a better team to work with. The committee works tirelessly. They give up several nights a year, and then they give up an entire week for this event. And that core of volunteers, they have 100 years of experience at this event, so they're pretty awesome. And one of the things that I calculated today, we calculated that we have over 200 local volunteers, but here's the killer number, over 1,150 volunteer hours for just that weekend. It takes a lot of people. We, at any given time, we usually have about 40 volunteers on the ground all of the time. So we couldn't do it without our sponsorships, so thank you to the City of Troy for allowing us to use that beautiful space, sponsoring the fireworks, and then you can see some of our corporate sponsors there. Again, we work with police and fire. DPW, Dennis and Kurt are just amazing. They love the event, so that makes it very easy, but they're available. They answer all my questions all the time, even the silly, crazy ones. So here's a couple of our sponsors. And like I said, we could not do this event without the community. We are constantly reaching into the community to find out what they would like to see next, what's doable. Believe me, it's not broken. It does not need to be fixed, but we're always looking for more ideas to continue to grow in a way that provides services to the community. What we're doing next. We've talked about the performing arts stage, the $100,000 that has already been donated and allocated. We're excited for that to be finished, as next year we'd like to use that as a secondary stage for entertainment, so that's exciting. Organizational grants, and then our local, Olivia already talked about our local grant cycle. Our 2024 grant cycle just closed, so we'll be making those public probably here in the next week. Our foundation operation budget, and then we always have a reserve fund for Troy Family Days, because we've had several really good years. It has not rained. When it rains, nobody comes to the festival. 30% of the revenue that we collect from this event comes from the rides company. So if they're not selling rides tickets, we're not making money. So we always make sure that we have enough money set aside to run the event for that year. I think if you remember from last year, I said before we even opened the gate, we've spent about $116,000. We're probably right at that number again this year, pretty close to it. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Thank you to the council. Thank you, Mayor Baker, for allowing us to continue to do this great work. Anybody questions?
Questions, comments? I mean, I always have something to say, but Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick? No.
Did you say 400 people attended the big event?
Oh,
Including the chaperones, so the
Right.
students and chaperones, yeah.
it's
That
probably a little
Thursday
bit over
morning.
400. It's in 2 cycles.
I'm just having a moment because I'm looking back at Cindy.
Yeah,
I just got choked up.
yeah.
Yeah, so we mentioned last year that we changed the name of the event. I think in the past, as, special persons events, that we highlight that before, for those not familiar, on Thursday morning before it opens even to the public, we invite special needs students from programs within the Troy School District and surrounds. So it's a private invite-only event, and we did rename that. A longtime City of Troy employee, Cindy Stewart, her late husband, Jeff Stewart, his nickname is Big. And so I don't know, I think it was
Somebody
maybe the
came up with
Bovin
it.
State family, actually came up with that name. So we renamed it the Big Event. So forever now, and forever to be known as that. So we love that it highlights, not in terms of the legacy that he had in serving the special needs community, but that we're able to open that up again, as a private event and make that a part of our festival. So yeah, we love, I shouldn't say it's my favorite part of the event because it hasn't even opened yet, but it's really wonderful.
I remember volunteering with Big
Yeah.
years ago, and we thought it was a big deal when we had like 30, 40 people, and it was always a highlight, and it is my favorite part.
Well, you should
of
come next year.
Troy Days, and
Thursday morning.
that's just that number, if you've been around a long time and you remember the details of these events, rain, no question, is a huge problem, and every year I pray and dance and cross my fingers and toes that you guys don't get hit with that, but that growth of that event is just, I wasn't sure I heard you correctly, and
And for the people who don't know or have not ever been to that event, we partner with our rides company. They open up 4 or 5 rides. We have a clown there that makes balloon things and tells really funny jokes. He's fantastic, and he's fantastic with the children. And then they all can go get a popcorn or a cotton candy. There's 2 lunch cycles, so there's pizza and water and juice boxes. It is just really a safe and calm environment for something that's really special. So it touches our heart. We partner with the Bovin State family and the ARC of Oakland County. They send us 12 volunteers. This group works tirelessly to make that event, and it happens and then it's over. Like, it seems like it happens so fast, but it is a phenomenal event. The smiles are from ear to ear. So it is a wonderful way to start our weekend.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you. So moving. Karen and Olivia, congratulations for another Troy Days. You intimated this already with International Day. It was really neat to see it in the pavilion instead of being kind of closed up in a tent. Do you have more information, or did you hear anecdotally? Did more people become aware of it or stop in just because it's in an open space now?
Absolutely.
That people you could see it from the rides, people are walking by it.
Well, people wanted to know where the entertainment was, and I was like, it's right here. It's this big, huge thing right here.
hear it, yeah.
But not only that, people were walking around, they were looking at the space, they were touching the ground, the bathrooms, the water fountains, the ice. We talked about whether it's going to be ice in the winter and rollerblades in the summer. I mean, we just kind of felt like we were ambassadors of that space, but it was really pretty. And next year, we really do, as a committee, we want to figure out, now that we've made this splash in this location, we want to figure out how to use that rink a little bit more and use that space, because we couldn't get enough people there, and we didn't want to put a vendor there that was paying a lot of money and didn't get the exposure that they needed. But we have a couple ideas for that, some more kids events or something. So, but yeah, the pavilion is amazing.
Councilmember Gunn?
So I was there the whole weekend. You guys do an amazing job.
you.
It was so well managed. I'm very proud of the whole event. You brought up rain, so I've been involved in numerous events like this. And do you take out rain insurance?
I don't think our policy has a rain.
I mean, it's it's event
It's
insurance.
usually very cheap.
Yeah, okay.
You know,
We do have lots of insurance. That might be
Yes.
one of them we don't have.
And
so
parade insurance, yeah, so, but specifically rain for the event. I don't know that our
well,
event
like
coverage,
if it
fireworks
rains any
coverage.
day, whatever revenue lost, you can
Okay.
recoup.
All right, well, we'll look into that. Okay.
Yeah,
Councilmember Chanda?
I just wanted to make a comment. I mean, I think Tri-Days probably is one of my most favorite things in the whole city, and it goes for a lot of people. I mean, so I'm glad that you brought back the parade. I mean, it is really enjoyable. I mean, that's something, hopefully next year more people will know about it.
Right.
This time, I think it was not publicized as much as we should. And the international festival was amazing. I mean, I think I made a joke to homes.com saying that if you want to travel around the world on a $0 budget, come to Troy Days. I mean, you would actually see everything, or live in Troy, better yet. So thank you for everything you are doing. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, I also didn't know about the numbers. I mean, the number of people that actually attend and the budget and things like that. So
Thank you.
congratulations. Yeah.
Councilmember Brooks?
Thank you. I also wanted to say thank you to you guys as well, Olivia and Karen. You guys did a wonderful job, and this is such a great example of a great partnership that we have kind of with the foundation and the city. I saw, all of our public safety, our DPW, I saw Kurt, Dennis, everybody just all comes together just to create such an amazing event. And I was also there all 4 days, and it's just a beautiful thing. There's just so many things going on. And you guys also didn't mention about Michael Jackson, and that was,
We know you were there. I saw you there.
really funny. That was really exciting. That was something
The wrestling,
new and different
wrestler
too.
performance.
We don't know if
Not
he's
sure if
coming
that's in the
back.
budget. But maybe you can put in a special request.
Yeah, that was fun. But thank you for everything. It's always wonderful. And it's great to see all the things that you guys are doing for the community in general. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
David, do you have anything? I actually wrote down Michael Jackson wrestling in my notes, and for people who have no idea what we're talking about, they think we're extra crazy on that one, but there was a Michael Jackson impersonator who was performing and wrestling, and it was, I think he flew out from Vegas, is that
That
right?
is correct.
A special request and paid for sponsorship
There
by
was a
somebody
private
else.
donation, yes.
That's my understanding of that one. But I just, I'll be really honest, several years ago, or it's been several years ago now, I wondered if Troy Family Days or Troy Days was done in the city. It went through some rough times, and you two and everybody involved have changed my mind completely. I mean, I mean that sincerely and with gratitude, because I do think it's still, at the heart of it, is considered a Troy event. And most people don't realize that it's not us doing it, it's you. And obviously there's a lot of interplay, and we talk about Kurt and Dennis and the public safety, but and Kurt and Dennis were there just as much as you, and probably
Yeah.
earlier and later. And, and I think it's, and
My job was just to be Kurt once, and I did not.
it's pretty exceptional. And my memory might be wrong, but I know at least last year, probably this year too, the Bovenseed family donated the pizza for the big event. Right. I mean, they play a big part, and I think that's worth calling out as well. But I also want to stress the value of having the open pavilion for the entertainment and for the International Day. It was just a fascinating scene to see people walking by and turning their heads and then stopping to see what was going on. And, I've been to the International Day tent at times when there's been some performers' family members in there only, right? And that's a shame because they do such amazing performances, but those seats were filled and
Full.
people climbing through the landscaping and the plants and bushes. I'm sure that was
Sorry,
scary for
Kurt.
people.
Sorry, Kurt.
But it gave a whole different energy, so I'm really thankful.
It really filled that space with music too.
Right.
It wasn't muffled in the, I mean, it just was really fantastic. So, yeah, we're super excited about it.
And I have two other quick things. You talked in the beginning about all volunteer run, and it really is. And you managed to put together a professional looking and feeling event with volunteers. And so that's not an easy feat. And I personally thank you for that because it does make the city look really wonderful. And we know whose backs it's on. So thank you. And just more of a serious note, with all that's going on with festivals in Metro Detroit and everything happening, I want to thank you, and without putting any negative energy out there, just for your focus on security and safety for the event in general, and your partnership with with the police department, obviously local police department, but also the extra measures you take to ensure safety and security for all the attendees and for those working there and being there.
We've been working with Brandon Hall. He helped us with our safety plan. He also gave us tips from last year, and we've already received tips from this year, and it was a very, very small report. So I was really happy to see that we're meeting the expectations of the city and keeping, our goal. We can't stop everything in the world, but I can do my best to keep you guys safe and everyone else safe. And it's not cheap. I mean, our security line item is between 15 and 20 grand now. And if you go back 5 years ago, that was something that we didn't even talk about. So it's a significant number in our budget.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly say kudos to our board, because that is the second year that they recognize the need for that investing in the extra security. There was a little debate, should we make changes, and shift, because that is a significant part of the budget. But again, doubling that expense these last 2 years, and they just decided, look, it's something that we have to do, something we feel strongly about. So I'm grateful for that as well.
I mean, what always surprises me is, we all get tired, right? But the people who are involved are truly passionate about it. They're not doing it just because they want their name on a list. They're doing it because they love this event and they went to it when they were a kid and they want to bring their children to it. And that is why we keep our focus on making sure that this is a community event. We bring back some things that don't make money, some things that will make some money. It's not always about the bottom line of that one item. It's about the entire experience. So we're really fortunate to get to work with people who are truly passionate about it. And we have great volunteers, and thank you to the city for such a beautiful space, the fireworks, and your team. I mean, I can call on anyone in the city and just say, what do you think about this? And believe me, everybody's really nice and honest and tells me what they think. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. And maybe next year we'll do the mayor dunk tank. I'm thinking about it. I'm sure there's some people in this room that would be first in line.
Could we read that into the record?
It's out there now.
Okay,
It's out there now. All right.
Thank you
Well,
both.
thank you
Good
very
to
much.
see you.
Thank you.
All right. I saw Councilmember Chamberlain kind of jump up with excitement. So.
You're very excited.
Stop warming up. C3 is a legislative update and fire truck grant presentation by our state senator, Michael Weber. Senator, how are you?
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Baker. Thank you, council and city administration. And Michael Weber, Senator for District 9, which includes Troy, Rochester area, Oakland Township, Sterling Heights, Utica, and Shelby Township. So I'm doing legislative update, but then, we can also dive into the fire truck grant. Since I was last here, the budget did pass in June. It did take effect on October 1st for our fiscal year. And, we did see, about $13.6 million increase in revenue sharing. We saw about $36 million increase for cities and villages in terms of Public Act 51 formula money. But then in addition, and it's certainly hard to top a sound wall, I guess, but worked with my colleagues this year and really worked with all of you to, figure out some of the needs and obviously value public safety in the city of Troy. I worked with my colleagues to put forward some projects that would obviously help the different communities in the district, and was certainly successful in terms of the fire truck grant. So I know you guys talked a little bit about that at the meeting a couple weeks ago, which unfortunately I couldn't attend, but happy to work on that. And as obviously we get into the budget process next year, look forward to continuing to work with you to make sure that our district gets their fair share of state funding for projects like that. I want to talk a little bit about and give an update on Revenue Sharing Trust Fund. We did try to put that into the budget process. As I talked about in May, it did pass with very strong bipartisan support in the House, over 100 votes. We tried to, with the help of Michigan Municipal League, try to get it into the budget process. We were unsuccessful in that, but we still, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion this fall still about Revenue Sharing Trust Fund, that statutory change, but also there's a kind of a different revenue sharing dealing more with public safety, and that is actually in the budget, but there's still statutory changes that need to be made by the Senate this fall. So I think, certainly we're trying to kind of tie the two issues together the best we can and try to provide more certainty for communities going forward. So there is some momentum on that still, but we're running out of time for this legislative session. In terms of the sound wall, the most up-to-date timeline I can give is, the end goal is, in terms of the timeline, is construction in the summer of 2026, as we've talked about. The design is underway. Base plan submittal is October of 24, so hopefully that's happening as we speak. Preliminary plan submittal January of 25, final project coordination in April of 2025, and then project letting in September of 2025, so that's kind of like the bid process. And then, of course, that will be awarded, and then construction in summer 2026. I know from talking to residents, they would like that done yesterday, and I certainly understand that frustration, but we are pushing and working with MDOT the best we can on that. So that is, as people are asking you in the community, that's kind of like the latest and greatest in terms of the time frame. I'm also still pushing in terms of noise pollution. I'm pushing my Senate Bill 643. It's in the Senate Appropriations Committee. That would create a fund within MDOT that we would appropriate dollars into, and it'd kind of be a grant program. State of Minnesota has something similar. They're the only other state that has something like that, where it's not federal money in terms of like federal money going with these projects, but it's certainly better than probably a process of trying to get an appropriation specifically for a specific part of sound wall. So I know other communities that I represent, Rochester Hills and Utica, they're on that M59 corridor. They're equally interested, with that legislation. So hopefully we can get some movement on that, if not this session, hopefully next session. And then last but not least, I've been engaged along with a lot of different legislators about some of the changes that are coming forward in terms of our hospitality industry. I was not able to participate in the Troy Chamber Hospitality Committee meeting that I know they had last week. We had session on that Wednesday, but I know how impactful that Supreme Court decision can be for these businesses, and I've probably participated in at least a half dozen discussions already with different owners, operators, workers on that subject. And so, I hold out hope that from a bipartisan basis, we can try to make some changes to that before that February 21st 2025 when it starts to get phased in. It doesn't fully get phased in until the end of the decade, but certainly it's on, top of mind for all the legislators, and we're all hearing from workers and different folks about it. Lastly, for residents here and at home, for more information, sign up for our monthly e-news. Please visit senatormichaelweber.com or call our office at 517-373-0994. Thank you. And I can take any questions if you guys had questions.
Sure thing, Senator. Councilman Gunn.
So thanks for all you're doing for us, bringing us some needed funds. And I appreciate you said Senate Bill 643. My question would be, why wouldn't MDOT, when they're going to do a new project, why wouldn't a wall be part of the budget process? Or because they build it and then residents have to wait.
So so basically, when they have federal funds involved, they do a study, as they did even with I-75, to see if any of those areas meet the federal criteria for funding. In this case, they didn't at that time, and so if they did, we could have been able to take advantage of that federal money.
Gotcha.
So this would be state money, and hopefully we wouldn't have to follow that federal criteria as much in terms of what they're looking at in terms of noise volume and in terms of how many residents near there. I mean, it could be more of a a state type of criteria, I guess.
So basically, it'd be like a budgeted item for that project?
It would be money that would be in the MDOT budget. So let's say we would put in there, I don't know, I'm making up a number, $15 million, and then there'd be grants that, grant proposals that would come in, and then trying to kind of, sift through that, trying to figure out for that particular year, that money would go towards, a couple of those projects kind of thing.
So that way residents wouldn't have to wait
Yeah.
5,
Yep.
6, 7 years.
Yep, for sure. No, in a perfect world, the federal money, we would have been able to utilize the federal money, and that's been the concern, obviously, and so that's why we stepped in with very rarely do we use state dollars for sound mitigation, so far in our state's history.
Well, we definitely thank you for your effort here.
Yeah, no problem.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kanga.
Yes, Senator, thank you for that update on the sound wall timeline. The impacted residents, so they're aware of that timeline as well, right? They have that information.
Yeah, we have been, our office have been communicating with the group, the residents group that really was the ones that pushed this forward and really put the pressure on all of us to work on it and to act. And so, yeah, they're aware of it. Obviously, that's the most we can push it at this point. But I mean, I think there was originally a timeline that was a little more aggressive than that. But I think that's still, probably a doable, workable time frame. And we'll keep the council and the community, apprised as we get into 2025 and make sure we're hitting all those steps and those marks that we talked about. So.
And that was my ask is, after this, could you share that? Because I couldn't capture all those details. Could your office email us that timeline? So
Sure, yeah.
Residents also come to us and we have that handy.
For sure. Yeah, I'll make a note of it for sure.
Thank you so much.
Additional questions, comments?
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Thank you for the work on revenue sharing too. And, I sense a lot of really good bipartisan work going on in Lansing. I don't want to put you in a hot seat because if you're in one party or the other, you can't admit that you're getting along with the others, right? But I'd like to make the observation that I do see that, and it goes on more behind the scenes than sometimes people realize. And things like the revenue sharing, that's all sounds like financial speak and whatnot to folks watching. It's a huge deal. And it sounds like there's a really good dialogue going on that. So I just thank you for that. I hope my observations are fair. And I would continue to encourage it because it's serving our city, all our cities well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what people expect. I mean, obviously, you run one party or the other, but when you get elected, you serve all the residents in the community, particularly with our Michigan Municipal League, MML, local government caucus. We've got bipartisan, participation because it's folks that have come from local government on both sides of the aisle and understand how important revenue sharing is, and particularly that certainty in terms of not having to go, kind of hat in hand to the legislature every year asking for more dollars. This way, it's kind of captured with that trust fund, and that's what I like about it. Obviously, they pushed it last session. Rep. Jim Ellison, who is a former Royal Oak, mayor, and Mark Tisdale, who I served with on the Rochester Hills City Council. And then Senator Moss and I kind of joined in this session on the Senate side to have them in both chambers. And and we've gotten some good bipartisan. In the vote in the House tells you, a lot about it in terms of 106 votes or whatever. So,
Thank you.
Councilmember Chanda.
Thank you, Senator, for the update, and thanks for bringing the money for the fire trucks. That's very important. And I appreciate your work on the revenue sharing. It's very important, I think, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, bipartisan work is important, so we are seeing the results of that. One question about the sound wall. We have some constituents who live on Square Lake, but that area didn't get chosen for sound wall. Because of population density, I believe. Is there any probability that we are reconsidering some of those areas to include?
Well, that's exactly why I introduced that Senate Bill 643, and that was kind of just our best. As I put my team, into kind of researching what other states do and that kind of thing, and that's what came up. So we're really pushing that. I think is for residents that are not being covered by the two sound walls that we're able to fund. It really trying to push, other legislators, I guess, to really give that a look, because I think that could be a good long-term mechanism for us, and, from a quality of life issue, I think that's, critical, so.
Yeah, that's good. If we can help in any way, let us know, but absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Awesome.
Thank you, Mike. Good to see you.
Thank you. Have a great meeting.
Thank you. Next up is C4, Resident Engagement and Priority Survey Results, and that is to be presented by William Santamore from Cobalt Community Research. Or Courtney. It's actually Courtney Flynn, Communications Director. To start.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I will be short, but yes, tonight we have with us Executive Director of Cobalt Community Research, William Santamore, and he will be presenting the high-level results from our community survey that was sent out in September and then available to the public in early October. And then following this meeting, we will make the full results available to City Council and the public. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present the results. I will jump straight to the punchline and say that the city did really well on the survey. So tonight, my main goal is just to orient you to some of the high-level results, to show you how to read the report as you get more detail coming down the road, and if you have any questions at the end, to answer those questions. So a little bit about Cobalt. We are a 501c3. We exist specifically to provide research and education for municipalities across the United States. The study goal specifically for this is to really provide you some data to support the various decisions that you're looking at, to look at the baseline service measures that we put together back in 2021 and see how that's changed. Has it gone up? Has it gone down? The world has changed a lot since 2021. We also, in our model, try to look at which aspects of resident experience drive certain outcomes. So we talk about satisfaction, and satisfaction is great, it's kind of fluffy, but in the model that we use, we're looking at things like people remaining in the community, recommending it to others, encouraging businesses to start up in the community, those kinds of things. So when I start talking about drivers, what I'm talking about are those particular scores, those questions that are most closely linked with those particular outcomes. We also do a lot of benchmarking. So there are things that cause your scores to go up and down that you have absolutely no control over. The political environment, the economic environment, other social factors. So by looking at the benchmarks, you're able to compare in context, have your scores gone up or down in the context of what else is going on. And then the last thing is that when we put this together, we want to make sure that all of the different demographic groups in the community are heard. So it's one thing to have overall results, but when you get into the crosstabs, what we do is we make sure that each individual demographic group, by age, by ethnicity, by section of the city, that you see the scores for that specific group as you're looking at the results. So it's not just one big number. Even if the group is small, you don't want their voices to be washed out. Okay, so let me get to the bottom line. So first of all, your score went up a smidge since 2021. It was a score of 73 back in 2021, and it went up to a 74 for this year. Now, it's not like a grade in high school. This is more of just a flat-out index, and a 74 is actually really good. And if we look at that in context nationally, cities scored a 54, and it was a 62 back in 2021. So if we're looking at the national level, they actually dropped by 8 points while you guys went up. Midwest, 55, it was a 61. Michigan, 54, it was a 62. So overall, that speaks volumes in terms of the steadiness of Troy and how well you've done in the interim period. So major themes in terms of the comments, what people like. They like the feeling of safety, like the quality of schools. They like the diversity in the neighborhoods. What are the things that kind of bother them that they'd like to see improved? The things that they talked about are traffic congestion, road surfaces, which incidentally I hear with every community that I work with everywhere, taxes, again, every community that I work with everywhere. There were concerns regarding development, lack of downtown, and limited non-motorized infrastructure. People have seen some improvements, but that's something that came up quite a bit in the comments as well. Statistically, the areas that are the most strongly linked with those outcomes that I talked about, in 2024, local government management, and this does not mean that the scores are good or bad, these are just the ones that are the most closely leveraged with those outcomes. So local government management, parks and recreation, your fire and emergency medical, economy and schools, compared to 2021, where it was similar, but we saw that police services were more of a hot ticket item back then. If you recall, there were a lot of things going on in Minneapolis and so on. Taxes were actually a bit more last time, and then schools and parks and recreation. So the landscape has changed a little bit for you since that time. Methodology, got to talk about that a little bit for those of you who are stats nerds. We did a random sample of 2,000 residents drawn from voters in the most recent gubernatorial election. We use random.org, but that is a utility that uses atmospheric noise to draw a true random sample, different than some of the machine stuff, but it's kind of geeky. It's out of Trinity College in Dublin. We did 2 mailings back in September and October of 2024. We gave everyone a unique ID number so that they could not vote early and vote often. They only got one chance to respond to the survey. We sent a reminder if they didn't. People could respond either with a postage paid envelope or they could reply online, but we still use that tracking number to make sure that they were valid responses. Overall, for the sampling, we heard back from 551 residents. That was above the 492 that we had back in 21, and that gives you a plus or minus of 4.1%. So when you look at something that's on a score of 0 to 100, it's plus or minus about 4. So kind of keep that fuzziness in mind as we look at some of the scores. One of the questions that always comes up is, for a community our size, is that a large enough response to really give you, a good statistical feel for what's going on in the community? And for a national survey, to get plus or minus 5%, you need 384 responses for the entire 330 million of us that are knocking around. So the fact you've got 551 in your random sample is very strong. In addition, we also heard from folks who are not part of the random sample. They had the opportunity to participate if they wished. That was another 174 people. So the total is 275. And if they were all in this room, it would be a very, very busy meeting. When we put together the results, we did not include the non-sample folks in the results, except for the crosstabs that I'll get to in a few minutes. There's a line specific in the crosstabs so you can see how they specifically responded, but because they're not random, they're not generalizable out to the entire population, so we wanted to make sure that we handled them separately so that they didn't blur the overall results. We do have details on the respondent pattern in the crosstabs on the last tab when you get that, but it is very, very similar to the pattern that we had back in 2021, so we've got good apples to apples comparison. This chart is designed to be unreadable, and I'm always proud to say that we are successful in doing that. So I don't want you to necessarily worry about the numbers. It's the colors that are the important things to keep in mind. You'll be getting these in great detail tomorrow. So essentially, every question in the survey marches across these columns on the top, and as you can see, these are just a little tiny window of them. And then every demographic group is its own row. And again, this is just a tiny portion of the different demographics that we're looking at. The key thing is that your eye is drawn to the blue, which are your high scores, and there's a little bit more contrast on the side screens. You can see this red tinting, which are your lower scores. So at the 50,000 foot view, you can immediately see which areas are the higher scores, which areas are the lower scores. In addition, if you were to drop straight down a column, if it's consistently blue or consistently red, that tells you that regardless of the demographic group, people really have the same kind of experience, the same kind of priorities. But if you're getting a bit more checkering, sort of a mix of the blue and the pink, that means that there are some differences between the perceptions and the experiences for each of these demographic groups. And as a council, this is a wonderful tool when you're out in the community. So when you're buying milk and you're talking with someone in the corner aisle and they fall into a particular category, maybe it's a young person with kids, you can ask them, instead of, in general, what can we do better in the city? You can be very specific and say, okay, I see that playgrounds had a lower score for people in your situation. What are some specific improvements we can make there? And so you'll get much more granular, actionable feedback from them that kind of plugs into the broader context of what's going on in this. So it's geeky, but I think this is the heart of the survey, so I think you'll find this useful. In addition, you can see your 2021 results compared to your 2024 results. And at the very bottom, when you get the whole beast, you'll see the non-sample respondents too, so you can see how they track along compared to the random sample. Okay, I'm going to move along pretty quickly because I don't want you to be here until midnight. And you'll have plenty of opportunities to reach out to me after this if you have questions. So in our model, we have particular outcome behaviors that are tied to the results that I talked to, and you can see those marching across the side. You see these different colors, and you can see the blue, the dark blue and the light blue, those are the national scores. The red and the light red, those are your Midwest scores, and the green and the dark green, those are your Michigan scores. The lighter green are for similarly sized communities, the darker green is for overall. And then you can see the gray bar and the teal bar, which represents Troy, which is well above those benchmarks. So that, again, speaks well for the community. And in this case, for the outcomes, in most cases, your scores went up. In a couple of cases, they did go down, though. Planning to volunteer, you can see that dropped down. Still above the benchmarks a little bit, but it did drop. And also encouraging businesses to start up dropped a smidgen, but that's within the margin of error. The volunteering thing is something, it's certainly statistically significant, but it is also something that we've seen with all of the communities that we've been working with, because people are a lot more busy. They're fully engaged in the workplace now. They're driving kids all over the place. So that is something that is common. Community image. This is another thing that's driven by the perceptions. And you can see, again, you're well above the benchmarks in most places. Often your scores have stayed the same or have gone up. A couple of spots that I wanted to point out. One is a safe place to live. Even though in the comments it came up a little bit, you can still see very, very high scores. Great place for families, went up. And again, very high scores. A place that is inclusive and celebrates diversity, very high scores. Areas that are a little bit softer, you can see over here, a safe place to walk at night. You're still above the benchmarks, but it did drop, and it's not as strong as some of your other areas. And then the other one that I wanted to point out is the safe place to bike and walk. And this ties in with some of the comments that we heard as far as some of the pedestrian infrastructure. Still really good scores, but it did drop a little bit, and that's a little bit of a concern that we heard from residents. Another chart that we designed to be unreadable, and again, I'm proud to say that we were successful. What this is doing is taking all of your questions and it's throwing them as a bunch of dots up here on this plot. And let me explain how this works, because we use this a lot. You'll be seeing it a lot as you go through the results on your own. But basically, we're using the rating from 1 to 10 on the horizontal, and then we've got the connection, the relationship with overall satisfaction and those outcomes across the horizontal. So you've got your relative strengths in the top, And over on the right-hand side, those are the things that are the most closely linked. These are your drivers. So as you're thinking about scores, something like number 14, yeah, it's a low score, but it's not really that much of a driver. Compared to something like 43, while it's not so much of a low score, it's a much stronger driver. So that's something that you'd want to pay a little bit more attention to. And I'll get into these in detail. To make this more readable, what we did is we took out all of the questions and we just put in the overall results, and we changed the scales so that we could zero in on this crosshair in the middle. So we end up with this. And what this shows is your most recent score is on the end with a number. And this other end of the worm is your score back in 2021. So you can see how that's changed over time. And what you can see here is some movement. For example, number 51, which is looking at your community events. It's a lower score, but it's improved and it's become more important. And we'll see some of that in the comments. 38, which is dealing with city leadership. You can see it's kind of close to the line. It's having a slight erosive effect on the overall scores. Again, you're way above the benchmarks, but it really didn't move that much compared to 2021. Number 70, you can see a big movement there, which is police. So it went down a smidge, not enough to be statistically significant, but it became much less of an issue than it was back in 2021. So that's how you kind of read these. Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to go over the top 5 that are the strongest drivers, the furthest over here on the right-hand side. And the first one is your fire and emergency medical services. Again, this pattern will be very familiar to you. You're well above the benchmarks. And from a statistical standpoint, pretty solid in terms of where you were back in 2021. You held the line, a little bit of a dip in response time to fires, but not enough to be statistically significant. Dropping in the little worm charts, you can see that the scores are very high, and they've shifted mostly over to the left-hand side, so they're more optimized now. They're less of a concern. 3 is the one that really had the most movement, but not very much in terms of response time to fires. That one dipped a little bit more than the others, as you saw on the prior chart. Public schools, not something you have control over, but something that is a huge component in terms of community and people making decisions to remain here and to recommend. Pretty solid across the board. Again, above the benchmarks. You can see a bump up around preparing students for solid careers, but you can see a little bit of a dip with the communication with the community. Looking over here, you can see what that looks like. Fairly decent correlation with number 9, which is the communication with the public. So that's something that having some collaboration with the school district might be helpful. But again, well above the benchmarks. So keep in mind, this isn't a problem. This is a polishing exercise, not a fixing something that's broken exercise. Local government. Again, similar pattern that we see. You're above the benchmarks, local government overall. You can see what that score looks like. We did see a little bit of dipping, not enough to be significant, but areas to note. The level of professionalism of staff is your highest score there. Having leaders who are well-trained, or employees that are well-trained, also one of your higher scores. Maintains a website that meets your needs, also up there. We've seen some movement in having leaders who are trustworthy. That one has gone up quite a bit. We've seen a couple that have dipped as well, particularly when we're looking over here at the enforcing appearance and safety codes. A lot of stuff to look at, but in general, this whole cluster is something that you have control over, and it is pretty closely related to the overall satisfaction and those outcomes that we talked about. And you'll be able to carve into those a bit more when you get the full packet. Economic health. You can see the scores, again, above benchmarks, but we can see a dip here with the strength of the local economy, and we also see a little bit of a dip with the affordability of housing. Something that's going on really across the country. And when we look at the amount of impact on these, we can say they all have a pretty, a moderate level of impact. Not the strongest impacts, but pretty significant. One that I did want to point out is your lowest score, one of your lowest scores in the survey is this one, number 60, which is the affordability of housing. So it is going down. For the most part, people already own their houses. They have a place to live, and that's the reason that it's not so much of a driver. But typically what we're hearing is the concern is more along the lines of either their kids can't afford to live in the community that they grew up in, or if they have a business, their employees can't afford to live in the community, so they've got to come in from outside. So those are some of the dynamics going on in that area. And then Parks and Recreation. Again, same pattern, very solid performance compared to 2021. And you can see that these are all up here in this quadrant. Really, this is kind of the strategic strengths quadrant, things that you're doing well and have a strong driver effect. So you've seen a little bit of movement up here, but overall doing a good job, and your parks continue to be something that you'll want to pay attention to. So a few other questions that we had in here. How frequently do you use the parks and recreational services? And a little bit of movement, but the one that I wanted to point out is the never here. So because people are more busy, we're seeing less use of the parks than we saw back in 2021 when basically going to the park was the only thing you could do. We did see a bump up here in terms of fewer than 6 times a week. We saw a little bit of a sag with the heavier users. I talked early on about the themes that I saw in the comments, and one thing when you get the whole list of all the verbatim comments to keep in mind is that comments are wonderful and they're also dangerous. They're wonderful in terms of you've got the stories, you've got the emotion, you've got these examples and all this wonderful stuff. And that's also the danger because it's very convincing and persuasive. And if you hear the same thing 3 or 4 times, it sticks in your brain and it may or may not be consistent with statistics. Keep in mind that the stats are representing 500 and some people, whereas the comments might be only representing 5 or 6. So the comments are great for better understanding why people responded the way they did, to get some flavor in terms of why they responded the way they did, but make sure that they're not overriding what you're seeing in the stats. So what they like about Troy, the word safe came up often. That's why it's one of the largest words there. People feel safe in the community, and they really appreciate the job that your police and your fire are doing. Very competent, doing a really good job. Schools, another area that people really felt was exceptional in Troy, and diversity. People really like to see the mix of people in the neighborhoods, and they would like to see even more celebration of diversity, festivals, that kind of thing. What they like least about Troy, traffic. They really don't like the traffic. More congestion, road surfaces are not as great as they could be in traffic noise. Taxes, you can see a big one right there in the middle. They're concerned about rising property taxes and particularly new development that's popping up all over, and a perception that the new development might not be paying their fair share and that more of the burden is going to existing residents. And then downtown, people, they're jealous of other surrounding communities that have really strong downtown areas, and they would like to see that. They would also like to see even more emphasis on bike routes and green space and street lights and some of those kinds of pedestrian-friendly elements. Okay, that was the whirlwind tour through the highlights. Now I'll be quiet and I'll answer any questions that you have.
Call those the lowlights. Councilmember Gunn.
A couple questions here. So you sent out 2,000, that's right? So is that pretty standard? I'm going by 80,000 residents, 2.5% is a good mix to get this kind of information?
It is, yeah. It's actually the more of the absolute number than as a percentage of residents that drives the number.
Okay. And the response, I know we're going to see it, but was there a larger response by a age bracket?
It was pretty consistent.
Was? Okay.
Yep.
That's good to hear. And then last question, you had one slide with 5, local management, parks, local government management, parks, fire, economy, and schools. Was that the good, or was that the things they were concerned about?
Those were the things that were the most strongly connected with overall satisfaction. Okay. Some of them were good, some of them were less good. Everything was good because you were well above the benchmarks and everything. So this is really the tuning thing, but the things that were as you think about that horizontal line and the crosstabs, anything below the line is kind of pulling down your scores, and anything above the line is pulling up your score. Gotcha. So if you want to look at increasing your scores, then those are the 2 levers to consider.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Chamberlain Quinego.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that amazing summary. As a social scientist, I always love the data. So I have a puzzle. Just comparing the data, and you may not have an answer, but if you do, that would be very helpful. I think back to 2021. So this is about parks and recreation. High scores. It was COVID, people were using the parks like nothing else. Then we did, between 2021 and this survey, remember we did another survey, not to be benchmarked against 2021 in this, but a survey on just priorities where residents would like to see their money go. It was kind of asking questions, would you support more funding for this? And on that, it was clear, public safety, roads, and the library, those were big things that came out. And Parks and Rec actually didn't score high there. I remember I asked you that question. You said, well, maybe, at the end of the day, when asked, really pushed, maybe that's maybe not where people would put their money. But then I'm seeing in 2024, what we just saw that, in what you just mentioned, is pay attention to parks. So I'm trying to wrestle with this conundrum of data, and can you help me?
So two different questions being considered. One is, if you ask people, where should we prioritize funding? You'll almost always see police, fire, roads, those kinds of things. These numbers are derived, so instead of being explicitly asking them what their priorities are, we're actually looking at the relationship of the data and trying to pull out what are the things that they really want to see. Because if you think of something like the fire department, and you compare it to selecting an automobile. So do you think about what are the things that you care about for when you're selecting one car from another car, kind of like selecting one community from another community? It might be pricing, it might be styling, it might be safety, it might be all these different kind of things to figure out what the driver is. Is it the steering wheel? No, but it's really important that it has a good steering wheel. Police and fire are very similar to having that steering wheel thing. The expectation is that it'll be there, that it'll be solid, that it'll be trustworthy, but it's these other things, these softer things that are the ones that drive satisfaction. They aren't just necessarily explicit things that they mark as being important. Does that help?
That's helpful. That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the survey. I have another quick question about kind of comparing 2021 to 2024. So it seems like a lot of the same questions were asked to be able to have that comparison, which is good. But was there anything different in this survey as maybe that we didn't look at in 2021?
This survey was really designed as just being a place checker to see how well you've held up basically in the interim. Okay. Because we had the initial baseline metrics that we took in 2021, and we wanted to see, based on all of the different changes that have gone on in the world, if things have held up. So that was really the main purpose, and then to give you the information for the budget and strategic planning.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Thank you. William, it's nice to see you in person for once. It was
see you
always
too.
virtual in the past,
Yeah.
so that's a new twist. Curious about the benchmarks that you show.
Yes.
One thing when we get the packet emailed to us, will we see what the 2021 benchmarks were versus 2024? Because you saw those graphs that had like 7 bars on them, and 5 were the benchmarks of the different cohorts, and then you had our 2021 and then our 2024. I'd kind of like to see the benchmarks for 21 as well. I mean, we could go back. I could probably
I'll get them to you. I don't think they'll be in the packet tomorrow, but I'll get them to you, and then you'll have them.
How are the benchmarks calculated, though? Are they, I know some of them showed like community size and whatnot, but I'm curious, like apples to apples comparison, if, the community, we saw how the score went from 65 to 55 or something like that over the last 3 years for many reasons, and ours maintained. I'm curious to see like what other communities had that dip and why, like in a little more granular detail is kind of what I want to see.
Sure. So the way that our benchmarks are calculated is not by looking at specific communities. Instead, what we do is a big national baseline survey every year, and we create an index that's representative. And then once we have that big index, we then chop it up. We oversample for Michigan to make sure that we've got enough, and then we create the different comparison groups. So inside that group, we could say, you've got a handful, particularly large group, you've got a handful from Warren and from, all these other communities, but there's not enough to say, this is the Warren score, or this is the whatever your largest city in Michigan score is. Instead, it's that index. And the reason that we do that, it's similar to an investment when you're looking at your particular mutual fund performance to an index. The scores go up and down. We wanted to have an index that wasn't based on whichever group of municipalities we happened to survey last year, because then you'd get this volatility that's caused by the folks that are represented in the survey frame. By doing the random sample, we have a much more stable index that you can compare to. So I can send you the list of other communities that are inside of that group if you'd like it, but there's not enough to say, this is the score for Warren and this is the score for others.
Yeah, that would be useful. And then other communities that you have surveyed where the results are public, I'll Google them and check it out and everything. I'm just
Sure.
kind of curious what the direct comparison kind of looks like, especially communities that are more similar to us.
All right, very good.
Councilmember Chanda.
Yeah, my question was similar to Councilmember Hamilton's. I think you already asked the question, but I was also curious about the benchmark. I mean, when it's a national, it's that communities of all sizes. I'm assuming it includes very small
It's basically
cities.
a random sample of residents across the country. And then from that, we say, okay, this resident was from this particular zip code, and this zip code translates into a small, medium, or large community in Washington State. So
it's irrespective of which city they live in, you just choose a random person.
Yes, correct.
Okay, that's, and then community of 25 to 100,000, which is also same thing, but you just separate them together. I was curious to see the library. I didn't see, and probably it was there, like it looked like the score dropped. Is that correct? I mean, it was not highlighted in any of the main things. Well, when we get the main package, I'll look
When you
at
get the main packet, because it wasn't one of the drivers for this year, so in the highlights, I didn't go through it, but you do have the library in the main
library,
packet.
and it sounded like it dropped, but I was just trying to see. But I'll look at the main package and see. Okay. No,
Yeah, and
otherwise-
looking at the benchmarks too, in terms of how they've moved.
Okay, great. No, thanks. Great work. Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's been answered.
Full results will be on the city website for public to view as well, City Manager Nastasi, or Deputy City Manager Bear. Okay, and my other question is, can someone in city management please forward the school district information to the school district so they have that information? Because I think that
Yes,
would be
we'll
beneficial.
make sure that's completed.
Okay. Thank you, William. Good to see you.
It's my pleasure. Good to see you too. Thank you, everybody.
Next up is C5, snow emergency presentation. That'll be presented by our Public Works Director, Kurt Bovensee. And I'm not sure if Courtney's also coming up on this one. She's on the agenda. All right.
All right, presentation number 5, so I'll try to make it quick, right? So a lot of accomplishments in my careers, but this has to be top 10. This is very important to us. And just for those that watching, back in June, City Council did approve ordinance amendment to the traffic code to include the ability to declare snow emergencies, and with that requiring vehicles to be removed from the street during a snow emergency. And it's something that we've strived for in the past, and we were successful here, but some of the reasons why that is important, and I'm going to go to the next slide just to show an image of what it's like to be that point of view in that truck as you go down the road. So not only are we contending with cars, but in addition, when that car moves, we're leaving that snow in the road. That snow can be very disruptive to not only other vehicles traveling those local roads, but also to emergency vehicles and our refuse and recycling trucks. So it just caused a big hindrance for our community for that one person to be conveniently parked in the street. So thank you very much for passing that ordinance and giving us the ability to declare a snow emergency and get those vehicles off. But it's not intended to be punitive. And Courtney is going to go into a lot of detail on our educational efforts with this. But with that, there has to be a fine. And the courts, and we worked with the city attorney's office, and the fine will be $75. Again, that's not, we won't be issuing fines initially. We've worked with the police department to figure out ways how we can warn the public and put that into our system so we know that a vehicle has actually been warned before they're issued a citation. So I will pass it over to Courtney to explain how we're educating.
Yes, thank you. Good evening again. So obviously with this being a major change for the community, we want to start to put the information out there as soon as possible. And knowing that hopefully snow will be coming. We're already encouraging the public to sign up to receive notifications. So that's through our Gov delivery system, which some of you may already be signed up to receive notifications on TFAC or recreation programming. It's the same system. And so if you go to bit.ly/Troy Snow, you can sign up, and when a snow emergency is declared, you will receive a text message and or an email. And then when a snow emergency is declared, it will also be on our social media sites, on our website, and then we will coordinate with the local press, and that will come across, your ticker on Channel 7, Channel 2, so on and so forth. But in order to encourage the public to start to sign up, we have a lot of public information pieces going out. So I would say one of our largest one is utility bill mailers. And we had our first mailing that went out about a week and a half ago. And then we will be hitting residents the month of November and then the month of December to ensure that we hit all ratepayers' homes. We are also starting to post on social media about the change, again, educating the community that they can sign up for these notifications and how they can know when a snow emergency is declared, but also why the city council instituted this, why this is important for the community, for our snowplow truck drivers. And these announcements have been made in the Troy Recreation Guide, the Troy Today. I'm working with the local media to get it out through them. We will also have bookmarks passed out with information, again, on how residents can sign up and why this is happening with our bookmobile as they are out in our community in places that we in City Hall may not be able to reach as easily. We'll have staff presence at community events, so I'll be at a table at the Polar Party in December. We'll have flyers in the buildings and then information on the website. And then Kurt had mentioned tickets and warning cards. So again, we know this is a change and we have been working with the police department. So especially this year, we will be on a warning system initially and the police are able to track that to know maybe repeat offenders. But instead of handing out a ticket, they will receive a card that explains that it is a snow emergency and in the future they could be fined and how they can sign up for notifications to know when a snow emergency is declared and also again why this is happening. So, and then this is just an example of the utility bill mailer that's going out. Some of you may have received that. And also this, if you receive your utility bill electronically, this is in the electronic bills as well. And then these are just some of the examples of our social media posts. So we did do one post, I think last week or the week before, and it was actually mostly positive comments. So I took that as a good sign. And then that's where you can sign up to become notified. And we had, I did not check today, but last week we already had a couple hundred people sign up, and there is a banner across the homepage.
I have a question. Yes, are we at that point?
Yes.
Clawson, for example, I believe, much smaller community, many less roads. I think they have signs posted on their street signs or something. Is that something we're considering doing and to additional notification about snow emergency procedures, or have we not contemplated, or have we made a decision on that?
We haven't discussed it, but Clawson is a little different in the fact that their ordinance speaks to nightly. So they have a parking ordinance that's effective every night. And you know, I don't know if cluttering entranceways get enough information just specifically on when we would call a snow emergency. I don't know how effective that would be.
My question was bad as I think about it. Thanks for being polite and kind there, Kurt. Councilmember Gunn?
Question, a resident I'll keep unnamed, if they have more vehicles than garage space and they have to pull it off the street, but then they'd be blocking the sidewalk for that snow emergency, is my wife, I mean, is that person going to get a ticket?
Well, I can't say no because it would be an ordinance violation, but I could probably say that the police department would be more likely to enforce the vehicle on the road at that particular time when we're in a snow emergency than enforcing if the car is blocking the sidewalk.
It would just be until you plow it in.
That's correct. The way the ordinance is written and in the publications is the snow emergency, you have to remove your car until the declaration is ended or your street is completely plowed.
Got it. Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
This might be a question more for the city manager or the police chief, but as I understand it, our police officers, when they're doing ordinance enforcement, are allowed to use good judgment in determining what they need to do and would likely understand why the car is blocking the sidewalk, correct?
Correct. All our officers have discretion when it comes to that type of thing. And then also, when there's a snow emergency, they're going to be tied up with accidents and cars stuck in ditches on I-75, and a car blocking the sidewalk would the street would probably be cleared by the time they make it to that call, if one of the neighbors happen to call.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Councilmember Hamilton.
And my question is, how will enforcement work, I guess? I know it's, are the truck drivers going to like note when they see a car in the road or something and filter that to the city? I don't expect them to like stop or anything because they're on a tight schedule, but I know, are they always on camera that we can review, or how does that work? I'm curious.
Sure. So when we sat down with the traffic control unit of the police department, there is the ability for the DPW staff to call in, but just as a reminder, only about 25% of the city is actually, when we're in local roads, is plowed by our staff. A lot of it, majority of it's contracted out. So we won't really have that opportunity for the workers to report. But talking with the sergeant, at nighttime's probably going to be a good time. They're staffed well. Calls usually slow down. They have access to our map where we're going to be, and they'll likely drive through. And that's how we're looking at it right now, is the police would actually go through the sections and issue the warnings or the violations as they see them.
Could residents, I guess you could say, rat out their neighbors and bring people in, or would that, if someone's always in the road and it's messing up the plowing, they may want to report it?
Yeah, interestingly, when we presented this to the Community Academy, and I understand that's a different group of our citizens very engaged, they're all very excited for this because they all said, I can't wait for that one neighbor to get their car off the street. There probably is going to be some neighbors to call police and non-emergency to report a violation as any other violation.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chanda.
Just general question, like, I know it's going to be lifted when, the road gets plowed, or a day or two? Like, our goal, I know, is to clear all the roads.
Sure. So
24 hours. So
yep, our goal from accumulations between 4 and 8 inches is to have all local roads cleared within 24 hours. That does get extended incrementally. It goes to 48 hours for anything over 8 inches to 12 inches. Anything over 12 inches accumulation, we ask for 72 hours to clear the roads.
So that would be, they'll be notified also. It's clear. The same email that they're getting or text they're getting will also get a notification.
Yep, we can certainly use that Gov delivery to announce that the emergency declaration is over. But likely people are going to recognize once their road gets cleared, they can put their vehicles back on.
Actually, I have a question. And this might be a smarter question than my earlier one. That doesn't necessarily mean the snow emergency is over, though, because the plows come through once. We know that they can continue to come through, so I wouldn't necessarily put my car back on the street just because I saw the plow go by, right? It really wait for that official declaration to be rescinded.
That's correct. I think the way we have it written is this road completely cleared. But you're right. A plow truck typically goes down that local road 3 to 4 times to completely clear it. However, it's not an hour duration. They segment the road, so usually it's cleared within 15, 20 minutes. So in fact, I would say that if the plow truck went by one time and an hour's passed and you haven't seen it, give us a call because someone probably made a wrong turn and we need to go back.
That was kind of my question. Do I have to wait till my road is cleared? Do I have to wait till,
Citywide.
It's citywide? And
that's the question.
Sounds like,
I have one more question.
Well, hold on.
Oops, sorry.
The ordinance is written, it's citywide. When they were, correct? I know it's our ordinance, but just for clarification.
I think we wrote in there when your road is cleared or the entire city. I believe there are two options in there, and I apologize for not having that on top of mind. But if we can get that information to you just for clarification. But to be safe, it's when the declaration is over.
So I guess to be extra safe, extra education for everyone, including people here. But that's the point. I think if there's confusion, and we passed this ordinance 4 months ago, so lots happened in the last 4 months. We can all look at it, but that is an important component to it because I understand we're doing warnings initially anyway, but just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Before we go to you, Mark, we'll go back. You had a follow-up?
Well, it's related to this, but a little bit different. There's also always confusion about which neighborhoods get plowed first and why and how people can track. So in addition to this communication, I know you already are thinking of this, but I need to hear you say that communication blast will continue about that as well.
Yes, that communication blast will continue. I actually have already created a snow emergency cheat sheet essentially. So in case one is called, all of the content that we need to pull, everything from when the snow emergency starts to when it ends, why it's happening, to the snow plow tracker that the city has and what streets are local or prioritized and why. We have that all in one place. So anyone in my department can pull that and easily post it or share it with whoever we need to.
Because there's always confusion and consternation and gnashing of teeth about, my neighborhood's taking forever, and if you're last this time, you'll be first next time, kind of a thing. So sort of loosely, but it rotates, and people don't understand that we try to be fair and rotate. So thank you for that.
Councilmember Gunn.
Well, one last quick point. One thing I might suggest, if you haven't already done this, but homeowner associations do a great job of getting information out to each resident within that homeowner association. You might want to consider sharing that with, because they really are all over this stuff, so.
We will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? This is all for the good. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's a good conversation to have. We didn't have this much of a conversation back in June, even though we'd worked on it in many other ways. So thank you for bringing it back to us and presenting.
And Mayor, I did find the provision. I did pull up the ordinance, and it does say that the snow emergency shall remain in effect for the period of time set by the city manager or until the particular street or area has become substantially clear of snow and ice from curb to curb, whichever comes first. So that's the exact language.
Okay, that's good. All right, thank you. I know you want to get up, Brent. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute recess, and then we'll come right back with E1. All right, back on the record. Next up are public hearings. We have one this evening. E1 is a conditional rezoning, JPLN 2024-001. Proposed backward lofts conditional rezoning, north side of Maple, west side of Stevenson, 1441 East Maple, PIN 88-20-26-351-016, section 26 from O office to IB, Integrated Industrial and Business District. And it'll be presented by our Community Development Director, Brent Saladon. Start.
Good evening, Mayor Baker, City Council. I'm going to apologize in advance. My brain usually starts to turn to mush around 9 o'clock, and it's about 9:08, so it is what it is. So adding an educational component for some of you who haven't had an opportunity to be involved in a conditional rezoning. What's a conditional rezoning? Until about 2004, conditional rezonings weren't even a legal thing in Michigan. The enabling legislation changed in 2004 to allow these. They're basically a rezoning where it's a zoning district map amendment, but it's a rezoning whereby the applicant can voluntarily offer some conditions of approval in order to protect adjacent properties of the secondary impacts, potentially, of the approval. So some of the conditions that are typically voluntarily offered, and I underline voluntarily because it's not a negotiation like a PUD. These have to be voluntarily offered by the applicant in writing during the process. But some conditions include use restriction, height restriction, or hours of operation. But really, it can be any type of secondary impact or any element that's associated with the rezoning that the neighbors may be concerned about. So there's a number of benefits, but the first and most important one is predictability. In the past, again, before 2004, when these were made legal in Michigan, when a property was rezoned, any use that was permitted in that new zoning district could be developed on the property as long as it met all the requirements of the zoning ordinance. But now with the benefits of conditional rezoning, developers can voluntarily restrict what they propose to do on the parcel. So when neighbors go to the public hearing, they know exactly what's being proposed. It's not a complete laundry list of all the uses permitted in the district. It's potentially restricted by the developer. So there's a greater chance of a win-win between the developer and the city, especially the neighbors. So let's talk about the property. It's about 1.82 acres in area. It's at 1441 East Maple, north side of Maple, west side of Stevenson, and there's a vacant 3-story office building on the property. The present zoning is O office. They propose to rezone to IB, which stands for Integrated Industrial and Business. There's IB to the north. There's IB on the north side of the office to the north. And there's a mix of land uses surrounding this property, including office, gas station, and retail. What the applicant wants to do is continue to utilize the first floor of the building as either office or commercial, and utilize the upper 2 stories as residential. They want to convert to multifamily apartments. And multifamily is not a permitted use in the O office district, hence the rezoning. The master plan. There is a special area plan in the master plan for Maple Road. What this special area plan calls for is a mix of land use focusing on repurposing, reuse, and redevelopment. So here's some of the strategies that are included in the sub-area plan. 1, encouraging high-quality commercial and mixed-use development at major mile intersections. 2, engaging surrounding residential neighborhoods through linkages. And 3, incentivizing development through zoning. And IB just happens to be a zoning district that's very inclusive in terms of uses. And it permits and encourages mixed use like the applicant wants to do here. So, as far as the master plan goes, converting the upper floors of an underperforming office building to residential would be consistent with the master plan. The applicant voluntarily offered a number of conditions. This is kind of lifted from the draft PUD agreement, and the uses are kind of lifted from the zoning ordinance, the schedule of uses in section 4.21. But basically, what the applicant is voluntarily offering to do is they want to propose multifamily dwellings on the upper floors. They want to permit all uses that are of a category of retail, entertainment, service, or office be permitted. Uses in the categories of recreation, institutional, or industrial, or miscellaneous in 4.21 not be permitted with the exception of accessory buildings and uses. And finally, and this is the most complicated one, but I'll try to explain it. In the IB district, parking is not permitted in the front yard unless it goes through what's called the SDP, Sustainable Development Program. This property fronts on Maple and Stevenson, and there's parking spaces that are conforming today, because you can park in front of a building in the O office district. They're conforming today, but the very second we rezone it, they're going to be non-conforming parking spaces. So that creates a problem. So what the applicant proposes to do voluntarily is eliminate the non-conformity of parking, either by eliminating the spaces altogether or by submitting an application to the Sustainable Design Review Committee and receive pre-qualified sustainable development project status. And one of you may be thinking, what is the Sustainable Development Project? And I would say, great question. And I kind of guess someone would be wondering what that was. So we have a Sustainable Development Project, or SDP program, and it's another voluntary program where a project can be granted regulatory flexibility in exchange for the applicant providing sustainable measures as part of the development. And the measures need to be directly related to the proposed improvements and in some way mitigate the environmental impacts of the proposed improvements. We've got a bunch of examples in the city. But this is just kind of generally summarizing the steps that would be taken if that was a path that the applicant chose to go down. So front yard parking in the IB is one of the categories. So if they go down this path, they would submit a site plan basically with the 4 prerequisites that are shown on the left. They'd have to propose a site plan that address stormwater quality, stormwater quantity, and that's improving quality and reducing the quantity that goes into the stormwater system. Has to address the heat island effect, and has to include water efficient landscaping. And as well as these 4 elements, they also have to propose 1 qualifying measure, and some of the examples include reducing light pollution, redeveloping or reusing a building, which is what they're proposing to do, or water recycling. So if they address the 4 items on the left as well as 1 qualifying measure, they present this to the Sustainable Development Review Committee. They can receive pre-qualified SDP status. Some of those improvements that would address the elements on the left would be rain garden or bioswale, where when it rains, the water goes into the bioswale and is pre-treated and cooled, et cetera. So those are the potential steps what was interesting was before we got into, I know most of you watch the Planning Commission meetings. We had a very long conversation about this, but we'd actually talked about some of these improvements before the Planning Commission meeting. So I'm very confident that we're going to see something along these lines from the applicant if this is rezoned. The standards for conditional rezoning are in section 16.04C3. I'm not going to read them, but they involve public health, safety, and welfare, and the application being consistent with the master plan. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this item, August 27th, 2024, recommended approval 7-1. And with that, I can answer any questions. The applicant is here, and the applicant's attorney is here, and they can answer any questions as well.
They don't have a presentation separate from what you just did?
I don't believe they have a presentation. They submitted some images of interior shots of an apartment renovation they did elsewhere. Yeah. If you had any questions about the quality that they were proposing to develop, we could pull those up for you.
That's fine. I was just checking for the time. Questions for Mr. Sabaton? Councilmember Chamberlain Kwango.
Thank you, Mayor. Brett, if I could ask you, I think what I had read here is that the site plan is not one of the conditions. I mean, often we see that. Is there a reason why that's not? Is it just because it's not at the stage to be, it's not developed enough to be a condition?
Yeah, good question. Every application's different. This one's a little bit different because really the only improvements that are going to be made to the site are related to the non-conforming parking spaces. It's for the most part, it's plug and play. They propose some improvements to the reskinning the building and doing a lot of interior improvements. But really, if you want to see what it's going to look like, you can go to the site today and generally get an idea of what's going to be proposed. And the applicant voluntarily offered those conditions because I think there was a feeling that the concerns the city had were more related to use than site, because again, the site's for the most part fully developed.
Councilmember Gunn.
Question. Did they indicate how many units they would have as far as apartments?
They did, and I'm drawing a blank.
38.
We're going to have a total of 28 units.
28.
The agreement is for up to 38. It's 14 on 2 and 14 on 3.
So I assume once they submit to the building, they will make sure that there's enough correct parking?
Yeah, another good question. So what we found is when Troy was booming, 30 or 40 years ago, and we had a big rise in office buildings, we had really high parking standards. So consequently, we have a lot of existing office buildings that have a lot of vacant parking lots. So they're, generally speaking, they're overparked for office. So there's more than enough parking for the residential units and the commercial and office uses on the first floor.
And I'm for mixed use. I'm pretty familiar with it. I don't see why parking in front would be such a hindrance. I mean, if they follow this STP, it should be good. But when you say address, that doesn't mean they have to put it in or implement it only if it's not there.
No, because they're voluntarily offering this as a condition, and it's going to be formalized in a conditional rezoning agreement, they have agreed to either eliminate all the parking spaces, which is the bigger lift here,
right,
or go in front of the Sustainable Development Review Committee for approval, which would involve not eliminating all the parking spaces. So I'm fairly confident they're going to do the latter. Yeah. But again, I think this is not insurmountable. This is something that can be quite easily achieved.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Additional questions, Councilmember Chanda?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Probably a basic question, you might have mentioned it already, is that, I think in one of the presentation it says reuse or redevelopment. I mean, is that, and I drive by that every day, I can't remember what the building looks like today, but is it looking at simply reusing the building or putting on top of?
They've indicated they're going to reskin it and make some improvements to the four elevations. But again, one of the benefits of redeveloping a site is all that carbon stays out of the landfill, and it's reused, and in and of itself, it's a very sustainable thing to do. So right away, that's one of the criteria for the qualifying measures. So that's going to be an easy box to tick in the application.
Good. Yeah, I'm for it. I mean, it looks pretty useful. I mean, it is utilizing the space for what we need, housing, yep. And that's. And then this STP, the Sustainable Development Committee, is that part of? I'm not familiar with it. Is that part of our city?
Yeah, the review committee is comprised of 5 members.
Okay.
And there's 2 planning commission members that are appointed by the city manager.
Okay.
And there's the zoning administrator, okay. Really sharp guy. You may know him. Me.
I didn't know, but
the city engineer.
Okay.
And the city building official.
Okay, great.
And we meet during the day. It's a public meeting. It's posted at the clerk's office, but we generally meet during the day at a time that's convenient for everyone. We're all here already. We coordinate with the applicant, and we meet here and have a meeting and consider it.
Councilmember Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor. So Just two quick questions. So the Sustainable Review Committee, that's not a necessity for applicants, it's just a resource, I guess, or something that the applicants can utilize if they would like?
Yeah, most of the applications we get in front of the Sustainable Development Review Committee are for the category that I mentioned, the parking in the front yard in the IB district. I would say 80% are for that. But the alternative to that, if an applicant doesn't want to go through the sustainable development process, but they still want to park in front of their building, they would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance. And the standards are significantly more difficult to reach for the variance. So what I like about this is the applicant wants approval because they don't want to go in front of the ZBA. And this involves sustainable elements, so it's better for the environment. So the applicant wants it, the review committee wants it, and it's a benefit to the city, to the neighbors, and to the city. So it's kind of a feel-good meeting, if you will.
That's great, yeah. And then my second question, I know that they are not required to do any landscaping, but from what I remember from the Planning Commission meeting, they had offered that they would incorporate some landscaping into this new project.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, is we had some preliminary meetings, and they fully intended to reduce a lot of that impervious asphalt anyways. So the sustainable development process goes hand in glove with a lot of the improvements they wanted to make anyways. So it was, I think that's why they don't have a lot of heartburn voluntarily offering that condition, because they kind of wanted to do it anyways.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Right, I will, Councilmember Chamberlain, can I go?
Just a basic question. I'm trying to see where I read this. Rentals or condos?
I believe rentals.
That was my assumption. Okay, thank you.
All right. I will open up the public hearing. I don't see that anybody has signed up to speak on E1, but that doesn't prohibit you from speaking if you'd like to. But now's your only chance. All right, with that said, I'll close the public hearing.
Oh, hold it. I signed up on the computer to speak.
Yeah, that's for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents. I see you. This is specific to this project.
Oh, I apologize.
No problem. No problem. Someone like to move E1 for discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move E1, conditional rezoning CR JPLN 2024-001, proposed, is it Batchard Lofts, conditional rezoning, north side of Maple, west side of Stevenson, 1441 East Maple, PIN 88-20-26-351-016, Section 26, from O Office to IB Integrated Industrial and Business District.
Support.
As printed in the agenda packet.
Oops, sorry.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Gunn, that we approve E1 conditional rezoning CRJPLN 2024-001 proposed, I say Backard, Lofts, conditional rezoning, north side of Maple, west side of Stevenson, 1441 East Maple, PIN 88-20-26-351-016, Section 26, from O Office to IB Integrated Industrial and Business District, as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
This is, a lot of these can come to us and are difficult. This one to me is a no-brainer. It's taking in a vacant property and making it something that our community needs. It's in a perfect area for that. It's not abutting other residential. It seems like an easy decision.
Very good. Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm actually so excited about this. I've often felt that Maple Road is the very place where there's a lot of opportunities that we could be thinking about these office to living conversions, which is what this is, with, of course, some retail on the bottom floor. That whole area, I think, it's not far from the highway. There's so much potential, and I won't get started off. We have so many priorities in the city, but I've often thought if there could be at some point even like a TIF redevelopment district, and I just think there's a lot of possibilities. So this is exactly something that I just love seeing, and I think this is the future that we're going to see in Troy. So glad to support it.
Very good. Councilmember Chanda?
Thank you. John, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango just mentioned it is a win-win situation. Taking a property that's not used or properly used and converting it to housing unit and mixed development, that's something we do need, and especially if you're doing it in an environmentally sustainable way, that's even an added plus. I'll be happy to support the zonings.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes, I also want to say I'm excited about the project. As everyone has mentioned, it really hits a lot of the points that we're trying to, really pivot, I think, from COVID. We have a lot of issues with affordable housing. The office stock, has changed since COVID. A lot of people aren't using the office spaces and the vacancy rates are higher. So, being able to convert and pivot and adapt, I think is so important for our city, and doing it in a sustainable way and repurposing the building, I think is optimal. So I'm really excited about it.
Anything else? All right, vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. There's nobody signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses tonight. Yours will be coming. It's coming. So no need for reply there. We have no postponed items, so we move on to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. There's a mayoral appointment this evening. I'll move resolved that the mayor of the city of Troy hereby appoints the following nominated person to serve on the board and committees as indicated. To the Downtown Development Authority, Linda Orleans is an in-district member for the term expiring September 30th, 2028.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve the appointment of Linda Orleans to the Downtown Development Authority for the term expiring September 30th, 2028. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Motion carries. That concludes mayoral appointments this evening. There are no city council appointments this evening, so we move on to I-2, board and committee nominations. I do have some mayoral nominations this evening. To the Global Troy Advisory Committee, I move the renomination of Ani Fakouri, Saida Muhadin, and Sunil Sekri for the terms expiring October 30th, 2027.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Craig, that we approve the renomination of Ani Fakouri, Syeda Muhadin, and Sunil Sekri to the Global Troy Advisory Authority Committee for the terms expiring October 30th, 2027. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes mayoral nominations this evening. My understanding is there's no city council nominations this evening, so we move on to I-3, is a request for closed session. Be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268E, Michigan Association of Home Builders versus City of Troy, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I-3, a request for closed session as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Motion carries. At the conclusion of our public agenda here, we will recess from this room and move into the council boardroom for our closed session, where it is expected that we will adjourn for the evening in there. Next up is I-4, 2024 City Council meeting schedule, and that'll be introduced by City Manager Frank Nastasi.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Each year, council and staff hold a strategic planning session, which is our City of Troy Advance. On August 12th, City Council scheduled the 2024 Advance Special Meeting for December 7th of this year and hired Petrino Consulting to facilitate. With the city manager search still underway, a new manager will likely start after that December 7th date. So the facilitator suggested moving the advance to allow for their participation. I also concur and recommend we cancel the December 7th special meeting. And if that is approved, myself and staff will work with council to identify a new Saturday in the first quarter of 2025 to hold the next advance. And if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions? I'll move I-4, 2024 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Craig, that we approve I-4 2024 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-5 2025 City Council meeting schedule, and that'll also be introduced by City Manager Nastasi.
Again, thank you. Each year, City Council adopts a schedule of regular meetings in accordance with our Charter and Open Meetings Act. The schedule incorporates 2 meetings per month. Each year, Council also schedules special meetings in April for presentation of the proposed budget. April 14th is a targeted date to present the budget, and then April 16th is an extra day if more time is needed, and we could always make adjustments to that. Of course, council may adjust any of these meetings or schedules or add meetings as necessary. I understand that everyone here is very busy. We did the best we can, but if there's any changes or any updates needed, I would welcome those. Probably, I think the best way to do it would be to email them to me, and then I could take a look at everything and ensure that we at least have a quorum for those days.
With that said, thank you. I'm going to seek consensus, I guess. I'd like to not take action on this item tonight and suggest that we each send in potential conflicts with the dates as printed here for next year to do just as City Manager Nastasi just said, to check first for quorum purposes, but if there is good reason for a potential change to any of these dates, please state it for city management to review, and then I'd ask city management to re-provide us with an updated list based on what you've determined and seen from us.
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Everybody good with that?
Sounds good.
Assuming we'd like to have these on the next meeting date, when do you need us to respond by? Or to give you that information if we haven't already?
Okay.
I mean, just within a week, is that fair? Does that give you enough time, or?
Yes. The sooner the better, of course.
Right.
But as soon as you get them to me, I'll work with my staff and get it out as quickly as possible, because I know how difficult it is with everyone's busy schedules.
Right, and just for the public, either here or watching, we're prohibited from taking out our phones and looking at our electric calendars during this meeting. That's one of our rules. That's the first issue. And second of all, it's just not great television to have us talking about dates at the table. We can be doing some of it behind the scenes. So, all right, thank you. Next up is I-6, lease agreement, assignment, and assumption for Camp Ticonderoga restaurant operations, and that'll be introduced by Brian Gould, our Recreations Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item before you is to request approval of the Camp Ticonderoga lease assignment and assumption agreement to transfer the current agreement for management from 5725 Rochester Road LLC to CT Hospitality LLC. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Chanda?
Just out of curiosity, I mean, is that it's basically it got purchased by that new organization? Is that what it is? Or?
It's just switching the management from one
Okay.
group to
Not
the other.
the ownership, but just the management?
Correct.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
We own the building,
Oh,
and
okay.
so, yeah, it's just changing basically the lease
Lease, okay.
agreement that we have with them for management.
Any other questions? Councilmember Gunn?
Is there a big increase in fees to them?
The agreement stays the same as it was, so it has a CPI in the agreement for each year, so that's what goes up.
Okay. Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move I-6, lease agreement, assignment, and assumption for Camp Ticonderoga restaurant operations as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Chamberlain Craig, supported by Councilmember Chanda, that we approve I-6, lease agreement, assignment, and assumption for Camp Ticonderoga restaurant operations as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries if you're here for an item on the consent agenda, which none of you are, although items have passed. Maybe Emily is. I say Emily is back there. All right, next up are memorandums and future council agenda items. K1, announcement of a public hearing on November 25th, 2024. Transfer Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, PY 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023 funds to a new project at Bolin Park. That public hearing will be November 25th, 2024. Now we get to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have 3 people signed up. One of them is still here, and the third, I think, is going to be upset if he doesn't come back. But Tony Cappe, you're up first.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I come before you today with a very sad heart. I've loved this city since I moved here in 1988. It has been my home for my whole adult working life, and I feel like the city has betrayed me. There's been two complexes that the city council voted on and allowed to be built, subdivisions, basically. One right across from the street from my house, the other one right next to my house. And then to add insult to injury, the city decided to sell the property right next to Leonard Elementary. The school system decided to do that, which is going to put another burden on our area. I've asked many times from the planning department if that particular builder, that I don't even know how that was purchased, the ridiculous cost, low cost that they paid for 13 acres is just unbelievable. As far as I know, it was never put out there for anybody else to bid on, but yet this person ended up getting it. It just doesn't sit right with me. What am I coming in front of you for? For one reason and one reason only. I'm in the latter part of my years. I retired about 3-4 years ago. I'm used to getting up at 4:30 in the morning. Now, because of the people that are working across the street from me and will be living across or working next to me, and the ones that will live across the kitty corner from me, I'm going to be required to get up 7 o'clock in the morning every morning, 6 days a week, because I hear all of the bells and whistles and the horns and everything else that those people are doing in their daily routines. What I'm asking for is, I was told that the only people that can change that is you, City Council. You can say, you know what, we understand that is a burden on the people in that subdivision, in that area, to have them be able to start that early. Do I want you to do it every day? No, you know what? That would probably be unfair, because the one person that's up here saying something, I'm the only one here. But what I would like to see is that you make their hours for at least Saturday start later, so that people that are in the subdivision that do have to go to work are able to enjoy their Saturdays. Right now, I'm not allowed to use my backyard because all I hear is horns. I'm not allowed to open my doors, my windows. This is a ridiculous, and I was told by real estate agents.
Your time has concluded. Okay. If I give you 30 more seconds with consensus, can you wrap up in 30 seconds?
I appreciate it. I can. I actually just have one last statement. I actually thought about, with a heavy heart, selling my property. And I've been told by numerous real estate agents that I have one of the nicest unmarketable properties in the city of Troy, because nobody for the next 5 years, until those other complexes are done, is going to touch my property. So I'm asking you for some type of consideration. And hopefully you can see that it's warranted. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll address your comments after we finish public comment. Did Kathleen O'Loughlin leave? I don't see her.
Yes.
She did. Okay. Mr. Luck?
Yes.
It's your turn.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes. When the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left, and when it turns red, your time is up.
Okay, well, I don't know if I'll get to everything, but I apologize for my outburst. The last time I was at a city council meeting was in Pontiac 15 years ago, and it was an Obama rally. It was right before the election, and I had to sit through that, but I did have the honor of meeting President Obama and change my outlook on him when he came up to Flint, Michigan to taste the water. I'm from Flint initially. I come from a mobster family. My uncle actually was the mayor of Flint, Don Williamson. I don't know if any of you know him, but Patsy Lou Williamson, the largest Buick dealer in the world, that was my family. The only thing I really inherited from my family was his vision, and I consider myself a visionary, especially with the book Traction by Gino Wickman, if any of you have read that. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. But the reason I'm coming here tonight is I'm kind of undercover to buy the Zen in that property that's listed right now for $50 million because of the error of my uncle's $800 million fortune went to my cousins that now live in Orlando, Florida, and that property is owned by Unicorp that's based in Orlando, and they're absentee owners. So I've been living there undercover, and I'm in a lawsuit with the Zen, which is no secret, and I'm up for another hearing and another motion this Wednesday. But the reason I really stepped up today was I was in search of you, and I met Bart today, and I have a meeting tomorrow with some legal issues, and I commend you, Mayor Baker, for keeping everything separate from your law firm to here, because they wouldn't even tell me anything about you or how to get a hold of you, except that your business with the city is handled here. I came up here for another issue, and I found out the city council meeting was here. But I believe, and I'll make it short, that with my visionary outlook of potentially buying the Zen and that property, that Big Beaver Road from 75 and potentially now with the new development going on at the old Kmart building to Adams Road should be reduced to 25 miles an hour, and we should think about making, and it, you know, stem from the report tonight that people are looking for a downtown area. So it would make it an international stop to come here like San Antonio, Texas, that we could come and walk the streets, maybe have food vendors, maybe have a lot of different things that I have thought about with the purchase of this property that could be incorporated into Troy. And with that, I'll just keep it short and keep it simple and stop there. But I look forward to meeting you, you know, maybe for lunch or something like that. And the other thing I wanted to say is I've been a local, state, and federal lobbyist since 1991, and I commend you again for the way you keep your professionalism of your position as the mayor of Troy separate from your law practice over with Barton Morris. There, I'll keep it short.
Thank you, Mr. Luck. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We do have an opportunity to reply now, and I'd like to start with you, Tony. I hope that you have taken some of your concerns, and let me take a step back. It's sometimes dicey with our school district. I hope you've taken your concerns to them directly about the property deal that they did. Obviously, it wasn't through this council chambers, and I hope you've shared your concerns about how that transpired and what transpired, because they're going to have the facts that we just don't have. And I share your, frankly, concern with that for a number of reasons. Maybe not so much how it went down, but the fact that it did go down, because it potentially inhibited some of the city's opportunities to beautify the area with trails and such things as well that would have kept it in its natural state. So I share your concerns with that. As it relates to your request about the changing of the hours, I'm going to ask city management. Off the top of my head, I can't remember our role in setting hours for construction, but perhaps you can at least give us some information on what that actually entails and if we do have any power of that, and also recognizing that I believe those hours are set for a reason, and I'm not apt to just change them, even though I understand where you're coming from. But I would be curious just to know what that process is and why that process is.
Yeah, I'll look into that and get that information to council.
And I guess I also just want to say, I'm calling you Tony, Mr. Kappas. You've been here a lot over the past several years, and you've spoken out during the different development projects that have come before us. And I maybe won't take a step as far as what the Realtor said, but I understand exactly your sentiment as far as the position you've been put in in your home. It's changed drastically, your neighborhood and your experience living there. And private property rights are one thing, and I recognize the role we can play in doing that. And I guess I just want to let you know that my heart hurts for you, because I know you wish nothing more than not having to come here and bring these concerns to us. You wish that things were either a little bit more like they used to be, or at least a little bit better now than they seem to be. So I will continue to look at ways we can use the example coming from Eckford citywide, but also to see what we can do in the meantime for anything for you. And just know that I'm deeply impacted by what you said tonight and thinking about it, and we'll continue to think about it. So, any other reply or comments? All right. There are no council referrals this evening. We move on to reports. Any discussion of the reports? All right, move on to council comments. I actually just want to start briefly because I know our city clerk Dixon is probably tired because she's working 20-hour days clerking. But are you up? We're in the middle of early voting. We're in the middle of a lot of things. Could you give a brief update on where things stand and all the ways that people in Troy can vote right now?
Sure, and I apologize because it's been a long time since I've been around like thousands of small children. So I have a cold from those small children. But we've processed about 3,000 people through our early voting center. Not all of those are Troy, obviously, but a vast majority of them are from Troy because we also have Clawson in our early voting center. Generally, everyone has been thrilled with early voting, the opportunity to do that. So we're happy to provide that service, partnering with the county. And, it's a long day and it's tiring and everything, but everyone is generally really happy. I mean, it's surprising that you could stand in line for an hour and a half and then show up at the door and be excited and like, this is great, So it's been an overall positive experience. We've also issued 24,000 absentee ballots. We've gotten 55% of those back. So some of those also have gone through our early voting center tabulators, and some of them could go through our election day precinct tabulators. So we don't expect to get 100% of those back because a lot of them will be converted into early votes or precinct votes. But we'll get in the 90s and the 90% of those back. So we have early tabulation starting on Wednesday. We have 2 days of early tabulation, Wednesday, October 30th, and Monday, November 4th. And then we have Election Day tabulation in our AV County Board on November 5th. So that all takes place in the community center. So basically, we've just kind of taken over most of the community center. So thanks to Brian and his staff for accommodating us. But I mean, for all of the work that we've been doing, I know it's worth it because we're servicing about 77% of the population of the city. So we're happy to do it.
Thank you. And I know social media has posted the hours for early voting.
Yep. We have posted early voting information as many places as we could possibly imagine. There was a citywide postcard that went to all the households a couple weeks ago. We have it on we have a webpage, troymi.gov/early voting, that's just set up with all the early voting information. We have posters in all of the city buildings. Of course, we have social media. We've been doing posts and posts and posts every week. We have information on absentee voting, early voting, and precinct voting all equally. And then also, of course, you can always call the clerk's office or email us or stop by. We have a satellite office that runs during the off regular hours of the city clerk's office. So no matter what time you go to early vote, you can either go to the satellite office if you need to register, or to the clerk's office here in City Hall if you need to register or to fix something with your registration. So we'll be able to, handle any problems that come up during early voting for Troy voters. And we have all of that information also on our website on troymi.gov/elections.
Thank you. You're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you.
Council comments? Councilmember Gunn.
I also want to thank Eileen. I know in communication with you that you're working your tail off, so I appreciate it. It was very smooth. It went through very well for me and my wife. I want to comment, I know in November is Veterans Day, and I attended an event at the Troy VFW. It was put on by Todd Brzezinski, and they did a great job talking about the challenges that veterans face. I guess I did not realize the number of suicides per day. 22 per day. And I know the VA is working closely with several of the veterans to try and improve their mental state. Some of the stories I heard was dramatic. But for anybody who's listening and watching or who's here that's a veteran, 988 is the phone number to call if you're facing challenges. I really hope and employ that veterans seek the help they need, because it's amazing to think that we're living in a free country and we have veterans that are going through this tragedy. So thank you, Todd, for what you put together.
Thank you, Councilmember Gunn. Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. To circle back to Aileen, I want to give a shout out to you, your entire office, Cheryl. It was a Friday night, close to 8 o'clock. This is the Troy Historic Village. So I had very much a family weekend, and we were out on the Friday night. They had a villains and heroes theme. And at the very end, there is Aileen and Cheryl, after you guys are working 20-hour days, and you're there at 8 o'clock, it's dark, all these kids, and I was so impressed. So thank you for all the ways, because you're there because kids are with their parents, and it's a way to get out the message. And your communication, all of these flyers, mailers, this has been amazing. So I'm just so proud. I'm so proud of the city of Troy and what you all are doing. And then also want to thank, of course, the Troy Historic Village, all the different community groups who come, the Troy Garden Club, also the Stage Nature Center. Those are all volunteers who are there, setting up stations and teaching our kids. And it's just always a joy to be out in the community. So that's the heartbeat, I always say, of Troy, is those volunteers who are serving this entire city. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor. Probably Councilmember Chanda will probably beat me to, will probably say this too, but happy Diwali to everybody who celebrates. And it was really nice to attend a Diwali event that Councilmember Chanda invited me to. It's always a beautiful thing, and I know it's a big holiday for many people in this community. So happy Diwali to everybody. And thank you, Aileen, for all that you're doing in the clerk's office and all you're doing for the election. I know this is a huge election. It's a presidential election, so everybody, obviously get out there and vote. And then one more plug again for the Uncorked, Nature Center Uncorked. Will take place on Friday, November 8th. Tickets are on sale, and the ticket prices do go up November 1st. So get your tickets. Oh, and also have a safe Halloween for everybody, because that's coming up soon too.
Councilmember Chanda?
Yeah, I also start off with, shout out to City Clerk Dixon. I mean, I know your staff is really working hard, not just right now, but starting with long time ago and promoting the early voting, and we're seeing results of that. So, and obviously it's an election season, presidential season. Even if you're living in a cave, just come out and vote for one day and then go back to not participating. I wanted to repeat, Diwali is on October 31st, so happy Diwali to all those who celebrate. And I also joined Councilmember Brooks in Diwali dinner at Bharatiya Temple. It was really nice, but a lot of other festivals are going on, so this is one of the things we celebrate our diversity together. That's many other functions are coming. And also Halloween is coming, so let's be safe, enjoy the, hopefully the kids will show up and it won't rain or snow. Very likely, that weather looks nice. So for a change, we'll enjoy a very nice Halloween. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted, earlier you mentioned in the memorandums, public hearing for CDBG block grant, and in that project, within that, there's a new project at Bullen Park for an inclusive park, and I know that's something we've been working really hard to do, so I was very excited to see that, and that'll be discussed at the November 25th council meeting, so in a month, but really excited to see that. It's CDBG dollars or federal dollars that come to us. There's very specific things we can do with them, so really happy to see that. A lot of exciting things happening at Bullen Park. And then I just wanted to thank city staff for everything they did for the Frightful 5K. It was awesome. It's also the first time I ever won the council race. I had the fastest time, 32 minutes. Noah Baker did walk it, so I beat him in that sense. But it was a fantastic event. The weather was perfect if you're running, maybe not if you're walking, but it was a great event, and thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Everything's covered.
That's what you think, and then I start. Okay, just a couple of quick things. I'm laughing a little bit that we make Aileen stay later and longer by keep talking about how wonderful she is. So you get a little less sleep to get back to work tomorrow morning, but really, former Michigan Clerk of the Year, it shows in everything you and your team are doing, the team you're leading, and I have a lot of faith in what happens in the Troy City Clerk office, because you hear a lot of scary things out there, but I know firsthand that you take this extremely seriously and do every precaution you can to protect the integrity of the vote, and I value that very much, so thank you.
Thank you.
First of all.
If I could just give a shout out, because I sit up here and you're so great. But it's me, Cheryl, Beth, Heather, Brian, Dina, Lori, Drew, Gretchen, Jackie. There's like a whole team of people that are working 12-hour days along with me, so we couldn't do it without all of them, and also all of the election workers in the early voting center and all the election workers, the 450 workers that are going to be working on Tuesday. So thanks to all of those guys too.
It's awesome. And Veterans Day is coming up, and we do have our annual Veterans Day ceremony at 11 o'clock in the morning on Monday, the 11th, 11/11. That'll be before our next council meeting. It'll be out front in Veterans Plaza, so please consider joining us for that event. It's always a meaningful and impactful event, and important, I think, to recognize our veterans here in Troy and throughout. And the Frightful 5K, I won't talk about the fact that I ran or walked because of the doctor's orders, so I'll give it to you, Councilmember Hamilton, but the truth of the matter is, it was a Sunday morning that was freezing cold, and I showed up to do my ceremonial aspect of it and walk, and there were city staff that had been there for hours, I'm sure, by the time I got there, literally freezing because it was pretty cold. And I just want to thank the recreation staff, the facilities, DPW team, everybody, public safety that goes into, frankly, making our city again shine in a community event where hundreds of people came, and many of them in costume, many of them really just loving being part of Troy and experiencing this event that's now, I think, the 8th annual is what we've called it. So I want to thank Brian, for you and your team, for all the work that goes into it. Kurt, all of the work that you go in, that your team goes into. Josh, you're here, the police department, if you could share with Chief Hollinger as well, and the fire department, everybody. I mean, it really is an all-hands-on-deck effort to, first of all, close down Big Beaver for an hour and to see how that plays out and block off all those side streets. And but just to, again, to make sure it's a safe, fun event for family members, young and older. It really is a great cross-section of community members that come out and enjoy this race. So thank you for doing that for us. And yes, congratulations, Councilmember Hamilton, as the sole runner this year. You did a great job. But truthfully, it's fun to see our council members who can be there, and those who can't, I understand. But also, Councilmember Brooks, she didn't run or walk, but she handed out a ton of medals and worked really hard at it with cold fingers. So I want to thank you for that, and the others, and you all had good reasons for not being there this year or not, and it's typically been one of my favorite community events. It wasn't as fun for me not being able to run, truthfully, but it was a special thing to see so many in our community having a good time. So thank you for all of that. I guess I also just say, city social media released today that we are interviewing city manager candidates at a special meeting on November 16th, and there's opportunities in that media release and on the social media to meet the candidates in advance and submit comment cards to us on council, so I encourage you all to do that. And of course, those interviews will be live streamed or aired live on the 16th beginning at 9 a.m. So please pay attention to that as well. And I think that's it for my comments. So I will move on. There's nobody signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy. We do have a closed session, so we will recess now and pick up in the boardroom.